Sunday, Sipping Streams Tea Tribe. This is Jenny here with Sipping Streams Tea Company, and congratulations to all of you who have finished your 5-day transformational tea challenge. At any time, write any questions you have about tea or anything else. Today I want to do kind of a Q&A for any questions you have about tea, about our tea immersion and transformation retreat and what you would get out of it. And also, I know that there are some questions that some of you have already sent to me, so I'm definitely covering any questions you have today. But I want to talk a little bit about how tea can heal your mind and your spirit. So any sort of substance you can take, almost like medication, but there's a limit to it. There's a balance between your body and your spirit, and you use your body as the vessel of your everyday life. But if your mental health or your spirit is not also healthy, there is sometimes a disconnect between the two of them. And because of the culture of tea, of slowing down, especially for those of you who fulfilled the mindfulness challenge this week, which was awesome, just to spend 15 days to give yourself a break, a rest, just mentally slowing down and physically slowing down at the same time. That mindfulness is super important. In my book, The Essence of Tea, I cover a little bit about the Tao of tea, about the way of tea, and how it isn't just a philosophy or a religion that people think of, but it really is a way of being, and what you can take from that is just slowing down. Like in the Chinese or Japanese tea ceremony, it takes time to prepare the tea. And it is also very enjoyable. People don't do it because they have to do it. People do it because they want to do it, because it helps their own self heal. Hi, Christina. Thank you for joining us today. And so it's like a desire and a craving that the body wants, is to spend time, quiet time, stillness time, to just try to heal and rejuvenate itself, more than just the body. But if your mental ability or your thoughts and your worries and stresses aren't being renewed, refreshed, then you're really ignoring a part of you, and there will be an imbalance. So I talk about burnout and how I dealt with burnout with tea in The Essence of Tea, the transformational journey of a tea connoisseur. And so you can read in the book the different types of teas that I used to deal with burnout while I was in the middle of it. I mentioned in the book that I went to the ER 3 times in 2 weeks because I no longer had a connection between my mind and my body. I no longer observed what my body was even going through because I didn't care anymore. My mind was go, go, go. Get it done. Drink lots of caffeine, get things off my checklist. But I had no slowdown of my body when it was literally burned at both ends of the candle that it finally had to let me know by completely shutting myself down. I mean, I could have gotten cancer. I could have had a heart attack. I could have went through so many things that would be terribly unfortunate because I decided to neglect my spiritual self and the connection of my mind and my body. So taking time for, mindfulness or a tea time is super important, especially when we're in the middle of chaos. When you think about it, 15 minutes is like going out and starting your car and warming it up and coming back in and loading your car up. 15 minutes is not that much time. If you want to think about an excuse of not having 15 minutes for yourself, think about the time that it takes for you to get in the house, put things away after work, and turn on the television. If you're willing to turn on the television and it takes 15 minutes, why can't you take care of yourself and have a longer life or a better, quality of life? So, hi, Christina. Happy Sunday. Thanks for joining us. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about the mindfulness and how using mindfulness and being in the present moment of that time is super important. The same thing with mindfulness when you're spending time with your children, whether you're spending time at work. Are you focused in exactly what you are doing? Like for the India trip, the tea immersion and transformation retreat, you will not be able to be distracted by anything else like work. You will not be home. Your dog and cat won't be with you. And it will be a place where you will be where you are and present in the moment, because that is exactly what you will be dealing with. So being mindful and being transformed to a different location and place is not just, a fun vacation, but can be extremely healing for you. And that's something that Anna Lundberg had talked about in this group earlier. Yesterday, we had Denise come on as a personal trainer and nutrition specialist, and she talked about how, it's definitely a mindset that you need to overcome to be transformed to the next level, to the next best person that you can be. But it really starts with baby steps, taking actionable steps, and being able to realize that, it has to slowly become who you are. You can't just decide and change everything. It is a huge hurdle to overcome if we think we can just be from 0 to 100. So really being mindful in the moment and realizing it is okay to slowly transform. But what are the baby steps you are going to take? What are the next actionable steps? So you've been working on your reading. You've been working on your wellness. You've been working on your diet. But have you organized and done your time blocks? Your tiny, tiny baby steps? What are you going to do next? Maybe your next thing is to completely allow yourself to be submersed in a different culture and location. So you step completely out of your box. What are your fears in that? Is it because you're worried about the money? Is it worth it? Is it a good investment to invest in yourself and your self-care? No, it is not selfish to invest in yourself. So one of my biggest struggles when I was burnt out was I was investing so much into my business. We had a lot of struggles with employee embezzlement, CPA fraud. Like, my business was like falling apart. I was working 2 other part-time jobs, trying to keep my employees employed and keeping the business running. And I did not care about myself. I think the only thing that helped me was I walked on a treadmill 30 minutes a day between my jobs. And I pretty much slept like only 3 hours a night for months on end. I started to lose weight at first, thinking that was great. And then I noticed my weight just stayed the same. And then I noticed that, my body was kind of reacting in different ways, even though I was eating healthy and drinking. But there was this mind-body disconnect where I was pushing my physical self much further because of my mental willpower and not realizing that I was truly taking care of myself, my body, the vessel. I only have one body on this earth. And so, self-care is very important so you can take care of your children, so you can take care of your spouse, so you can love your neighbors. And, we don't want to build resentment to the rest of the world. I mean, I think about all those movies that we watch with the bad guys and how they end up, I think about the psychology of how those bad guys end up becoming bad guys, like on Star Wars, and how they go to the dark side. So, I don't want to be one of those people who turn to the dark side because of bitterness, because of lack of understanding, because of, not stepping outside of my box and just holding on to like everything I'm struggling with. That mindfulness time is very important for self-discovery and personal healing. So I just want to say something about that. Okay, if you have any questions at all, put them down below because I definitely want to answer them now about some of your tea questions about the tea tour. But here are some questions that I got. So there was a question about caffeine, and one person said, when I was younger, a friend of mine told me that when we were drinking loose leaf tea, most of the caffeine will come out within the 20 to 40 seconds of a steeping. So if you put 2 fingers of hot water in your tea bag and let it sit for 20 to 40 seconds, the majority of the caffeine will come out. So you can throw the water out, throw out that first steeping, and then rebrew it, and it has less caffeine. Now remember, I was telling you that high quality teas, because they are a larger particle size, like crinkled up, that slowly open over time, unlike these tiny little, those tea bag teas at the grocery store that you rip open. And I remember I showed you like all these tiny little particles. Okay, so think about coffee grounds and the water. It sucks everything out right away. So yes, of course, your first cup of coffee is going to be strong and have a lot of caffeine in it, and you don't rebrew your coffee grounds. The same thing with low quality tea. Yes, for that tea bag of low quality tea, you could steep it for 20 seconds, 40 seconds, and yes, most of the caffeine will probably come out of it because it's these tiny particle size. So at surface area, the ratio of like water touching everything pulls all of the flavor out, the nutrients out, and the caffeine. But when you use whole leaf teas, that whole leaf is crinkled up into a tiny ball and will slowly open. So more water is touching all over that whole leaf. So actually you're getting more and more flavor, more and more caffeine, more and more nutrients by re-steeping your tea. So it's not true of high quality good teas, but it is true that you'll lose most of the caffeine the first steeping for terrible tea dust or fannings, because you also aren't going to get a good cup of tea for the second or the third. So that is kind of a myth that's out there, but for high quality teas, it's not true. Hey, Mackenzie, I just answered your question about re-steeping your teas and washing the caffeine out of the first steeping. Now, also just to let you know, decaffeinated teas, like for example, decaffeinated English breakfast and decaffeinated green tea. Now, the decaffeination process removes most of the caffeine. So the tea plant, we're talking about Camellia sinensis, has caffeine in it, right? It has a lot more than coffee. But through the decaffeination process, and typically the CO2 process is the most safe process because it's a gas that's released in the chamber, and the CO2 forces the caffeine to come out of the tea leaves, which comes out in a white powder. If you've ever seen caffeine pills, it's this white pill. That's because caffeine, when it's just in its raw form, looks like this white powdery dust. So, when tea is decaffeinated, it is not caffeine-free. If you're allergic to caffeine or caffeine sensitive, decaffeinated teas are good for people who are, have a low caffeine tolerance, but not good for people who are allergic to caffeine. And there are people who are allergic to caffeine who actually, break out in sweats and rashes and stuff like that. So if you're allergic to your caffeine and you have a decaffeinated green tea or black tea, because it's from the Camellia sinensis plant, it still has like 1 to 3% caffeine. And I don't know if I mentioned this before, but the caffeine in tea, because of the different components in the plant, actually stay in your bloodstream longer than coffee. That's why you don't get a crash. Coffee is like up and then down. So you get a bunch of caffeine and then you crash. But because the plant is completely different, those molecules bind to other things, components in the plant, and they're more complex and stay in the bloodstream a lot longer. So it's circulating throughout your body, and that's why you don't necessarily get a caffeine buzz, but you just keep going and realize, wow, I can't shut off my mind. Oops, I drank Dragonwell green tea right before I go to bed. I'm totally relaxed and ready to go to bed, but now my mind just keeps thinking and thinking and thinking and thinking, and I can't fall asleep. You're not hyper. You're just awake because the caffeine is still in your bloodstream. So that's one thing that's important to know. Hi, Julie Henderson. Thanks for joining us. We're answering some questions that you guys have about tea or about the tea immersion program, so definitely write them down below so that I can answer them. And then we'll be doing the drawing for the smart speaker. So anyway, so I just answered a question about decaffeinated teas and caffeine-free teas and how you actually decaffeinate them. Now remember, a tisane is not from the tea plant. So depending what it is, for example, yerba mate. Yerba mate is a plant from South America that is high in caffeine, and it is related to holly. It is not the tea plant itself. It's not Camellia sinensis, but it does have caffeine in it. But a plant, another tisane like peppermint or chamomile, does not have caffeine in it. So when we think of tisanes, it's anything that is not the Camellia sinensis plant. So the majority of tisanes or herbals out there are caffeine-free, except yerba mate is very high in caffeine, which I also talk about that in my book, The Essence of Tea. So for those of you who are interested in learning more about tea, remember all of our tea classes are 50% off till this Tuesday, and then they go back up to $250. I mail you all the supplies. So in The Essence of Tea, you get a gram scale, you get a timer, you get a thermometer, you get 5 of our amazing award-winning teas. 5 of our teas, and then 2 of them are actual international award-winning teas. You get a full cupping set, so you learn how to taste tea. And the same thing about the class that I'm offering in Fairbanks. So I'm offering it, but a compact version of a 2-day workshop. So if you're in Fairbanks area, you can sign up by Tuesday and get half off the class. So it's a super in-depth tea course, and it talks all about the different components of tea, the locations, and why that's important. So that's a little bit about tea. Okay, I'm going to check out if there's any more questions. Write them down below. I have another question. Okay, I have a question. What and how is tea processed? You says it uncurls. Who or what is curling it in the first place? And along those lines, I re-steeped a green tea I have today for the first time, and it tasted better on the second steeping. That was cool. And then she said, so my question is, if I steep it the first time for longer, will it affect the second steeping? And steeping longer increases flavor and caffeine content? Yes. Okay, so how is tea processed? Well, if you join me in India, you will actually get to see the whole entire process. You will get to be able to pick the tea leaves. We'll probably have it machine rolled. So there's machines, there's different methods. There's the orthodox method, which usually either for Dragonwell green tea, it's just flattened and squished and seared a little bit, which is usually done by hand actually. For a tea Kuan or a Dragonwell rolling, they have different machines that have a different rolling technique for the texture. So if you have gotten one of our sampler boxes or any of our teas, you might have noticed the green teas or the oolong teas all look different in texture and the crinkliness of it. So some of them might be curled like a ball, some of them might be mangled and looks like a weird nugget. And that all has to do with the rolling technique, which if it's traditional like a Chinese method, usually it's a plate that's stationary. They throw the tea leaves on it, and then above it will be another plate, and it has a certain texture pattern. For tea Kuan Yin, it's a half moon shape. So over here, the plate will be half moon, half moon, half moon, half moon, and it mimics the traditional rolling, which is the palm of the hand. And that palm of the hand, when it used to roll the balls of the tea, and I say the balls of the tea, it goes really complicated. In The Essence of Tea, we explain that a lot more. The tea Kuan Yin is actually put into these giant cheesecloths, and they're squished with the palm of the hand. So when they have the machine, the stationary plate, they put the cheese ball of tea on top of it, and this is specifically for tea Kuan Yin. Every tea has a different rolling technique. And then on top of it will be a moving plate going around in a circle, and you'll see videos in our tea class about this, that it will be mimicking doing it by hand, because anyone who does it by hand, of course, is going to cost a lot more. It's going to be a much more expensive tea because you have to pay that person the labor costs. So, right, it's just fair. The more work you put into it, the more hand done it is, the more expensive it's going to be, because a person needs to be compensated for their labor. It doesn't matter what country. Even in Western cultures, we think that. Why wouldn't Eastern cultures, why wouldn't tea-producing cultures want to be compensated for their time and labor? So, a little bit about the tea processing. That is just barely touching the surface of tea processing. We go much more in depth during the tea tour, and we'll learn about how to professionally taste tea and why it's so important that each batch and each lot is so extremely different. Even the time of day that it was picked, and even the next day, and how every single batch is tasted, and we'll learn how to taste the tea and to tell what kind of flavors are going to be even varied just by the next day, or the weather, or the environment, which we'll be living at the tea farms like that, so we'll totally understand that. But in The Essence of Tea, I talk more in depth about that. for the Essence of Tea course. In the Matcha Madness course, matcha is completely different. It's a powder, so that whole processing is completely different. And then in the Kombucha Culture class, that is also different in itself because now you're introducing billions of microbes that are another factor in your tea process. And that's why I offer those 3 signature classes, because they are very different from each other and they address very different topics of tea. So, aren't you glad you're a part of my Sipping Streams tea tribe? Who is excited that you guys are part of this tea tribe and interested in learning more about tea, huh? Who's getting some value? Give me some thumbs up and some hearts out there. So, let's see. Do I have another question? Does anyone have any questions about tea? Any more questions? Okay. So, we covered about the healing processes of tea. Hi, Nancy. Thanks for joining us. Hi, Leah. Thanks for watching. Okay, we talked about how tea is healing for your mind and your spirit and how that is so important for that mindfulness time. I talk about in my book about the Tao of tea and how my grandfather always had tea time. If you have any questions at all, write them down below right now, or I can address them later. I can address more tomorrow when we're doing our class giveaway. But right now I had just covered about the decaffeination process very briefly, talked about decaffeinated teas, the myths of decaffeinated teas, and also I had talked about the process of tea and how tea is processed. And it all is very dependent. Like I said, it is definitely hours and lots of pictures that you need to see. Or if you just come on our tea program, our tea tour to India, you'll be able to see it all. But you'll be having a 12-day immersion program, so you'll really understand the tea industry. Now, I had some more questions about tea. I'm going to try to look them up really quickly, but if you have any questions at all, write your questions down about tea. If you have questions about health, nutrition, things like that, and I'll try to answer them the best that I can. I know that I had some questions from Kathy. So, let's see. How many of you are really enjoying this transformational tea challenge? How many of you have found great value in this? Okay. Kathy said, wondering if you know of a tea that would help lactation for women who are breastfeeding. Due to gestational diabetes and such, my friend needs to be on a low-carb diet. This usually inhibits the flow of milk and causes it to be really thick. There are some teas on the market for this, but remember, they're not teas, they're tisanes. They're herbal infusions. And there are some tisanes on the market for it, but we're learning all teas are not equal. Yes, that is very true. And if you have any suggestions or tea that you sell, that we would appreciate it. So, there is all sorts of, medicinal herbal tisanes out there that may help with lactation. Again, you should check with your doctor to see if it's contraindicated against anything else that you're doing, drinking, eating, medications that you have. And again, that really has to do with you and your individual body and what you're going through. Everyone's bodies are totally different. Like for any mothers out there, if you have any suggestions, you can write it out there. But I specialize in the Camellia sinensis plant. That's why I'm a certified tea specialist with the Specialty Tea Institute, not for, herbals. I'm not an herbal doctor or anything like that. I specialize in the tea plant itself. And, sorry, I'm trying to, and so, with that, I know that some people, and Leah, you might be able to answer any of those questions, but some people use raspberry leaf, which is pretty safe. And then there's some other ones, but I'm not really sure what they are. Again, like I said, it really also will depend, the potency or the effectiveness of that will depend on, the quality. So if you're buying tea bag, regular cheap tea bag teas, that will be look at the best by date, the later the best by date, the fresher it is. But remember, all that packaging is going to create oxidation. So you're really wanting to look at those ingredients and then see if you can buy those ingredients from like a higher end specialty section or the bulk section where there's less air. So more of those ingredients are compact and tight together, and buy them and maybe mix them yourself and then drink them in like a loose leaf form of that tisane. So that's what I would really suggest, because then you have a fresher ingredient. Also, you want to have any sort of potency of a tea or tisane for potency. Think about when you have your cup of tea and the lid is open and it's evaporating and cooling. That evaporation process, even though it's all like in here, some of it is actually being evaporated, some of the nutritional benefits. So that's why it's usually better to leave a cover on it and let the temperature from the outside cool it down. So we do have some mugs, some tea travel mugs, some cups with lids on them to keep those essential oils within the beverage to stay in there. So if you're wanting things for medicinal potency, to have it covered and almost cooked in whatever, mug or tea travel mug or teapot that you're making it in. That also helps with the potency of the effectiveness of whatever those medicinal properties are. So sorry if I didn't answer your questions too much about lactation. I don't really specialize in that. Okay, let's see, another one. Oh, yeah. So Christina wrote mother's milk, tea, fenugreek, oats, brewer's yeast are all good for lactation. And then she said, I have more knowledge of supplements from working at GNC for 5 years and lactation for breastfeeding for 2 years. Yes, she's a mother. So good. Thank you for that insight. So those of you who are interested in those questions, maybe, message Christina and she can help you out. Remember, not all supplements are equal either. So it really will depend on the brand and the quality of their supplements. It is a little bit like you get what you pay for. So if you want to buy something really cheap, think about why it's really cheap. Think about the source of that supplement company. I've had friends who work for large pharmaceutical companies and supplement companies, very large international ones, and the ingredients of how they source it and that supply chain all depends, just like tea. Okay, let's see. What are some other questions? There's a specific time of day that tea is the most beneficial health-wise. Well, health-wise, it really depends. So if you're talking about Camellia sinensis, you can drink it any time of the day, other than if you're caffeine sensitive, and you should not have caffeine before you go to bed. So other than that, you're staying hydrated. Remember, we had Denise on. She said drink 100 fluid ounces a day. Work your way up to drinking at least 100 fluid ounces a day, because just staying hydrated is so important in your body self-maintaining its optimal health without any sort of supplement or food or nutritional input. Just the fact of hydration helps the body function at its optimal level. It's kind of like the highway in your body for all the nutrients to be dispersed. So health-wise, think about how many times you're going to go to the bathroom if you're going to be drinking tea. And then think about, you probably don't want to drink 100 fluid ounces before you go to bed because you'll probably be getting up. But there's no necessarily time of day. Now, there is some, when you consume it with another food or something like that, kind of like vitamin C and vitamin D together, but that is very minute, much smaller than other things like calcium being absorbed and things like that. As far as tea goes, most people drink tea first thing in the morning. This is worldwide. Drink it first thing in the morning, and they drink it kind of throughout the day, but then darker teas, like black teas, and stronger, more acidic or tannin teas, like ones that, create a little bit more acidity, especially low-grade tea bags, really cause your digestive system to start going. So those are better for taking after a heavy meal, like you've just had dinner or something like that. Finish it off with a cup of tea. If you've had a very fatty dessert or meal or something like that, those tannins in the tea can actually help with digestion. So some people kind of get an upset stomach with it, and it might be because their stomach's empty. So if you have crappy low-grade tea, it's probably to get rid of that stuff with your meals, because you don't feel like you're wasting it. You're using up that tea. It's not really bad. It's just old or stale and not as potent and effective. So this is a great time to get rid of, those typical tea bag brands that out there that have that really cheap low-grade particle size, because it will help with digestion because of the tannins, because everything's being released all at once, almost like a concentrated cup of tea. So hopefully that answers your question, Christina. Let's see. Leah said rooibos is both an anti-inflammatory and an antihistamine. Which one is it, or is it? It's both. Okay, so if you think about an antihistamine, what it does is prevent kind of like inflammation of seasonal allergies, of rashes. Like a histamine is something that causes irritation, essentially. And so an anti-inflammatory, and I say it like a natural antihistamine, is because it is not... Rooibos is so powerful that it acts both right on top of your skin. Like if I get a mosquito bite, I put a bag of rooibos, like a tea, I make it and then I soak a cloth in it and then I put it right on my skin and instantly it stops itching. If I've got lesions down my throat like I did when my body was burned out, that's the only thing I could drink was rooibos, so it could open a passageway so it could swallow my medication. Like I said, I had to go to the ER 3 times, and my airway was literally closing off, and water made my throat burn. But because I knew that rooibos is kind of like Benadryl, but without all those negative side effects, can open up your passageway, your airway, because it instantly calms down your immune system, kind of. And it also, on contact, any sort of inflammation or stomach ulcers and things like that. That's why we have people who have ulcerative colitis and Crohn's who have told me, I didn't know that's what they were using it for, but we're using our rooibos and chamomile blend, the African sunset, to stop their flare-ups on contact. When they felt a flare-up starting to happen in their digestive system, they drink a concentrated cup of African sunset, and then instantly it brought their flare-up down. So that's like the immune system starting to attack their colon or, digestive system. So that's why I say it's a natural inflammatory, because it can help with arthritis. It can help with and then almost like a histamine, because when you put Benadryl or something on it, or seasonal allergies or on lesions. So that's why it's both. It does everything. And it has some of the same antioxidants that are on the tea plant. So the tea plant doesn't just have ECGC. There's tons of flavonoids or antioxidants that it has in it, but rooibos has some of the same antioxidants as the tea plant and some that are more powerful and just in different ways. Okay, so hopefully that answered your questions, Leah. Okay, Julie asked, are any of your teas particularly helpful for high blood pressure and systemic inflammation? So rooibos, again, for systemic inflammation. We have people who have MS who say it helps by the end of the day. We have people with chronic back pain because of a major incident that they had or overuse injury from college wrestling, and now they're ranchers, and so they have to use their body and their back hurts all the time, chronic pain. Instead of popping ibuprofen, they use our rooibos. One person, he's a rancher, and he said he ran out of the rooibos because they're ranchers out of Utah. They went to a specialty tea shop, bought some loose leaf rooibos, and they said it didn't work. And I was like, what do you mean it didn't work? They're like, it just didn't work. And the only thing I could think of was the quality and the freshness was not as good, so the potency wasn't there. I said, did you use the same recipe that you've been using with mine? Did you use the same amount? Did you steep it the same way? And they said, yeah, everything. But it didn't work. We need 2 pounds of yours because we know that you're a reliable source on freshness and quality. And like I said, not all teas are the same. Not all specialty tea companies are the same. And you're going to have to just know by being observant with your own body and tasting it and smelling it and just experiencing it yourself. But now you have the skills to get out there and to make your own decisions, your own buying choices. Not always is more expensive better. There's some major tea chains out there who cost an arm and a leg for a really low quality tea that you can only steep twice. And people said, what's the difference about your tea? And I said, well, ours is a higher quality tea typically because it's rolled tighter. So you don't actually smell a lot of aroma. But when you're smelling all that aroma out of the big jar that they're wafting at you, then that's all the essential oils evaporating and you're losing some of the nutritional benefits. It's getting stale right in front of your face and you're buying stale tea. So just put that into consideration, that smell is not always a factor of how good the quality is. It's very attractive, but not always a good sign. Okay, and so for blood pressure, we suggest hibiscus. The hospital actually here locally buys hibiscus from us for high blood pressure for people who are being, scanned for radiology and stuff, just so their blood pressure drops low. And hibiscus also is good for regulating blood sugar and lowering blood pressure too. And then let's see, any other questions? Quality versus quantity. Yeah, definitely. Know your sources if you can. Okay. Christina said, I deal with bloating from a certain food on a regular basis, so I will try that. Oh, and then also, African Sunset is the only one I've ever created medicinally, so I don't create my tea blends or my tisane blends for medicinal properties, because anything that's high quality, everything has health benefits. That potency always depends on the quality. So I just like to have good quality tea. And growing up as food, as medicine, I know that. That's just part of my culture. So I don't think of trying to design something for medicinal properties. I just know it's good for me if it's a food that is of high quality. Now remember, that's a mindset change. Like, food is medicine, and get good quality food. And don't think of it as a supplement or something to heal this and that. Get your rainbow food. That's what we'll be going through in India, from noticing all the different foods that we'll experience in the street markets and at mealtime. We'll be going over the in-depth spectrum of nutritional foods as medicine. So, and that will be a different, perspective and lens that you'll be able to experience when you join me in India. But okay, let's go back. So bloating, also you can use parsley. Parsley is known for helping with bloating. And you can steep it or you can just eat it. If you eat fresh parsley, that'll be way more potent because you're not drinking parsley broth. You're getting 100% of the health benefits. Same thing with matcha. That's technically why it's the healthiest tea as a Camellia sinensis plant, because you are not using the parsley as a broth. You're going to get 100% of the health benefits because you're just eating the parsley. It kind of cracks me up when I watch a certain doctor on TV or people tell me, oh, have you seen Dr. So-and-so on TV? They were talking about this tea. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense that it would work, but have you just eaten it? Like, don't go look for dried parsley. I mean, dried parsley is pretty cheap to begin with, and don't come and buy it from me. Go to the grocery store and actually go eat parsley. Put it in your foods. Put parsley in your salad. Like if you're having digestional issues with salad because you're getting used to the fiber and eating dark leafy greens and things like that, why don't you eat some parsley with it? Then you're getting 100% of the health benefits. Okay. Oh yeah, Mackenzie just replied to Christina about using different teas. Okay, Mackenzie, yes. It's not the best tasting, but it's beneficial. Also, breastfeeding mamas need to get more than the recommended amount of water per day. Yes, exactly. That's why it's kind of thick sometimes, because remember Denise was on here last night or yesterday talking about you need 100 fluid ounces at least. And now, like for example, me, I'm losing hydration through my breath. Okay, so speakers, athletes, when they're sweating, when they're breathing hard, they're losing hydration out in different ways. And then going to the bathroom, of course. And then if you're lactating, then you're losing hydration through giving, milk to your baby, essentially. That is mostly water. So think about it in staying hydrated and being a way of living. Be observant of your body. We've just talked about mindset and being observant of ourselves and what our goals are. So now you have taken the baby steps to become more mindful and transforming your year. Now, how are you being mindful of your nutritional and, health and the foods that you eat. And earlier today, I was talking about being mindful with your mind and how it's so important to your health, your spiritual health, and who you are, mental health. Yes. Oh, Christina's loving Midnight Sun Herbal Blend. If you didn't see on my Instagram page yesterday, Christina treated me to some amazing blue velvet cupcakes, which I ate right away, and I was very hungry. So thank you very much. Then, Julie said, I'm guessing my pumpkin spice rooibos from Trader Joe's doesn't fit the bill. And let's see, I usually buy for flavor and love the Northern Serenity, so I'll add those to my next order. Yeah, the Northern Serenity is what we recommend for people who have sinus infections, the flu, allergies, because it's got peppermint, which is really great for opening up the sinuses. And then it's got cacao nibs in it, so peppermint and cacao nibs. Cacao nibs have a lot of theobromine. So when you think of chocolate is made from raw cacao, right? So this doesn't actually have any chocolate in it. It's the raw ingredients of cacao. No dairy, no sugar, nothing like that added to it. So it's a 0-calorie item. And you don't have to worry about allergies as much unless you're allergic to those 3 ingredients: rooibos, cacao, peppermint, and vanilla. So, and then it has, theobromine helps open up and relax the bronchioles, just like Dragon Well green tea. And then it's got rooibos in it, which brings out inflammation. So think about it. Your sinuses are opening with the Northern Serenity, with the peppermint. Your lungs are opening for breathing and absorbing oxygen. So when you've got your sinus infection, the flu, you're creating better circulation of oxygen. Of course, you're also drinking water, 99% water, because of the Tisane. And then the rooibos is bringing down the inflammation, so it's going to help with drainage at the same time. And so the Northern Serenity is great hot or iced, but it happens to be a very, very powerful Tisane in it too. And again, it all has to do with the ingredients, the potency of the medicinal properties. And as I touched on a little bit earlier, just make sure there's a lid on so you're not losing the potency of the essential oils and the steam. That steam is really pretty, and it's cooling down your Tisane, but you're also losing some of the potency if you're really needing it because you're really sick. Okay. So let's see. What are some other questions? Oh, hi, Heather. Thanks for watching. Thanks for joining us here. Leah, did I hear you correctly about offering tea classes? Half off until Monday? Does that include Matcha Madness? Okay, it's half off till Tuesday, actually. So some of you have already bought the Kombucha Culture class. Some of you have bought the Essence of Tea class. And then we're offering the Essence of Tea class in person also this Friday and Saturday in Fairbanks. It's a 2-day workshop because it's essentially compacting a month-long class, but in person with me. So if you want to do an in-person tea class in Fairbanks, Alaska, definitely sign up by Tuesday, where you can PM me. You can call the tea house, which is 907-457-1660. And then, or you can just buy the online course. So the online course, I will not be with you there in person, but I'll be with you virtually. And so you do get half off the tea classes. Any of those tea classes, you can stock them up. You choose what month you want to have them. So yes, it includes Matcha Madness, Kombucha Culture, and the Essence of Tea. So all 3 classes are half off. You can buy as many as you want. You can gift them if you want. The sale ends on Tuesday. And also, if you want to sign up for our tea tour, you'll get $150 off if you leave your deposit by this Tuesday. So remember, our unique tea immersion program and transformation retreat is super, super unique and incredibly valuable because I am not charging for the 5 days of personal growth and wellness. I am not charging that. That is all part of the tea program that not only is a tea tour and a tea lesson and the life of a person who is in that culture and the history in that country, we are also having 5 days of sessions, like in the morning, just early in the morning before our tour starts, on focusing on personal wellness, mindset, growth and achievement, nutrition, exercise, wellness, just all of that stuff. So definitely let your friends know because I don't know of any tea programs that actually help people with that. And if you are a business professional and want to learn more about how to, make your tea or your business, not a tea business, but any business, go to the next level, you'll have 2 private sessions with me on business growth strategy. As you can see, I've done so many different things. I have an Alexa flash briefing now. I've written an amazing book that's already hit #1 new release. I teach tea classes online and in person. I've been a speaker at the World Tea Expo, and also I've won 11 international awards on tea, all from Fairbanks, Alaska. I mean, who would think there'd be an award-winning tea company in Alaska, out of all places? And I network and I build really good relationships with my suppliers. So if you are a business professional, I can help you with whatever your business, whether you're a salesperson, whether you're a small business owner or coach or anything like that. We'll have 2 private sessions with me also. That is a bonus, that there's no charge involved. So this is the first time we're ever doing it. I can't guarantee that retreat portion isn't going to be extra in the future. And I don't even know when we're going to do another tea immersion program in the future. This is just our first one. And like I said yesterday, this is just something that Shalini and I were like, hey, let's try this out. Let's go and take people to my own hometown and where I grew up and actually show people all their questions that they have, and let's have them make tea too. So, let's see, what else? So Leah, hopefully that answered your question about, yes, it includes the Matcha Madness course, the Essence of Tea course, which those are month-long classes that you take online. All the supplies are mailed to you. So if you send them in by Tuesday and you want to start your class in February, I can ship them out to you this week. And then, oh, thanks, Christina. I'm glad you enjoyed them. Oh, Christina has another question about re-steeping. Should I let the tea dry out in between steepings, or can I do them one right after another? I do them one right after the other. I mean, the liqueur, the tea liquid itself is all in there. It's not going to ruin anything if you do one right after the other. That's why I drink, a gallon of tea a day, because I just literally just keep drinking tea, keep drinking tea, keep drinking tea. I like flavor in my water. I didn't grow up drinking water. That wasn't something we did in our household. It was always drinking hot water or juice or coffee, and we know juice is really high in sugar. Growing up, like my dad, he would buy Sunny Delight, and he was like, here's some orange juice. It's full of vitamin C. And that was their marketing scheme, was to market vitamin C and Sunny D, which is like mostly corn syrup. And I knew my stomach didn't feel very good, probably from all the sugar, but that is something that is to be considered nowadays, is that you don't want a bunch of sugar. And tea has no calories if it is just infusion. Now, I've seen some fancy tisanes out there that are like chocolate whatever, and they got sprinkles, and they have sugar in them, and those technically have calories because, the sugar is in the liquid. Okay. So I had a lot of color in my first cup, not as much as my second cup. Wondering if it has to do with the tea or it's from the rose petals. Yeah, color isn't necessarily an indication, and the mixture of the midnight sun, it really has to depend how long you steeped it. And, if you steeped it really long, the first steeping, of course, is going to be weaker the second steeping because you've over steeped it. And so more of that concentration is in the cup. So midnight sun, I usually steep really low the first time because for me, the hibiscus is really tart and I do less and less. But remember, a tisane is not the tea plant, so they typically don't re-steep as well as loose leaf teas, which are thicker and more leathery and can withstand a lot of heat and, need time to infuse. But all of our tisanes you can re-steep up to 4 times. It's just not as potent as if you drank regular loose leaf teas from the Camellia sinensis plant. All right. Are there any other questions before we do our drawing? Now remember, all of you who did your homework, you'll be entered into winning one of our tea courses. So get your homework in if you haven't had your 5 days of homework done, and you can catch up and So some of you don't have all your homework done. I am not just checking the units. In fact, I don't really look at the units other than it's a way for you to organize and make sure you did all of your homework. But I am actually looking at every post of your homework wherever it is, and then I have it in a notepad on my computer to make sure that you guys have done all of your homework. So every day that you've done your homework, you're entered to win one of the tea courses, which is valued at $250. So you definitely want to be a part of that. And today, for those of you who wrote a book review on Amazon, you were all entered to win one of the smart speakers. So if you don't want a smart speaker, you can get a gift certificate instead. But I highly recommend the smart speaker. It was something I knew nothing about, and then I started doing the daily flash briefing, and I was like, wow, that's so cool. I can listen to like a mini podcast essentially about everything I want to learn. So you can learn more about tea every day. My Alexa flash briefing, again, is called The Essence of Tea. My book's called The Essence of Tea. My first tea course is called The Essence of Tea. And my flash briefing is called The Essence of Tea. And I have all these awesome ideas for coming up for probably next year. But anyways, definitely let your friends know about the Tea Immersion program. If you have any questions at all, message me. We can get you on a payment plan, so it's very attainable. Remember, self-care is not selfish. Self-care is important so that you are healthy mentally and physically, so that you can be an amazing impact to the world around you. Remember, it always starts with you. It starts with your own responsibility of taking care of yourself, because you can't give what you don't have. In the book of the 5 love languages, it talks about the empty tank. Are you empty? Are you completely drained? Is this why you feel resentment? Is this why you feel you're stuck in, a rut? Is this why you kind of feel lonely and you feel like you don't have love? Are you taking care of yourself first? Are you also aware of how you are with your barriers? And how do you overcome your barriers? That is so important. So many times I feel so drained from my love tank. It's just like at the end of the day, because I've been just giving and giving and giving. And believe me, this week has been really rough for me, just because, well, as you can hear, this whole time my dogs have been whining, and I have 3 dogs now and a hedgehog. Frankie's great though. She's quiet and antisocial. But still, giving all this energy out to you, I kind of feel depleted. So I'm super excited about this treat of this India Tea Immersion program. And I really hope you'll join me. Definitely let your friends know about it. And if you can't go, but you know somebody who would really benefit from this transformation retreat and this tea immersion program, that if they could step outside of their box with a guided tour that was a safe environment, but they had the freedom and choices to meet new people and to get out and explore a little bit, that is what this opportunity is about. And it's about self-care too. So, okay, on with the drawing. If you have any questions at all, put them down so I can answer them. Okay, so the winner, so remember, tomorrow is a tea class drawing for the people who entered their homework. The winner is, man, some of you guys have entered in all these things, so I wonder if it's somebody I already know. Catherine Payne! You won! You won the Echo Dot. So let me know, Catherine, if you already have a smart speaker, but if not, this is a great way to learn more about tea. So congratulations, Catherine! Yay! And she's traveling, so she actually has been emailing me or private messaging me all of her posts because, well, she's like out and traveling and she's having a hard time posting everything. But she's been also doing all of her goals. So congratulations for the book review, Catherine Payne. Sorry, Nancy. Maybe next time. But definitely let your friends know about our Sipping Streams Tea Tribe. Remember, they do have to answer the 3 questions, and hopefully every week, if not every month, I will be on here talking about a little tidbit about tea, and definitely share out the Tea Immersion program with your friends. If you're interested in tea course, they're all half off until this Tuesday, and if you sign up for the Tea Immersion program and the Transformation Retreat, you'll also get $150 off your package. So definitely get out there, call me, or put yourself, click the link for the calendar to schedule a talk with me. If you have any hesitations or questions about the Tea Immersion program, it's an amazing once-in-a-lifetime opportunity where you can really transform your life and take the steps that you have already started with this past week into the future. So join me tomorrow at 12 o'clock where I give away the tea class, and definitely post your questions or anything you have so I can answer them. Remember, self-care is not selfish. What are the baby steps you're going to do to transform your life? How are you going to step in outside of the box? So you got your what about Bob? He takes those baby steps, and then pretty soon, he's on vacation with the family. So how are you going to transform your life for the next level of yourself? So see you guys tomorrow.